Wolfgang looks over at my daughter, Sage. He's like, hey, so how old are you? And my daughter's like, oh, I'm 18. He looks over at me, and I'm just like this. Nope. You just went like this.
Hi everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Fret Success Guitar Show. Today I'm talking to Wally Toney, who is the owner of Cornford Amps USA, and it's going to be cool to chat with him because he's got quite a few cool stories and talking about the kind of background and history of Cornford Amps. So let's dive into that now. So hi Wally, how's it going?
Doing great. How are you?
Good. I'm good. Nice to chat to you, and really appreciate you taking the time off to kind of chat and connect with us. And we had an initial chat before we sat down to record this, and it's just interesting to find out the kind of nuances and the history of Cornford and the things that happened, and it'd be great to kind of dive into all of that in this chat. So yeah, where are you at the moment, Wally?
So I live in Minneapolis. I've been living in Minneapolis since around 95. I moved here for music school. Went through 2 different programs with music, guitar performance, record production, and then did some job hopping and stuff like that. And I landed a job at a vintage guitar store. And that's kind of where things started for me in town musically, in and out of a few studios and a few cool things. But yeah, I've been in Minneapolis the whole time. So a lot of people back in the day used to call me Wally Minneapolis. Yeah, I ran Cornford USA from Minneapolis, and at the end there, I ran Cornford Amplification actually in the UK from Minneapolis here.
I know a little bit about Cornford, but I don't think it's not a widespread amp firm. It's prevalent, but like it's not one that people always tend to think of. So it'd be nice to dive into the kind of history, behind how Paul started, and really from your words as an insider as to how that all came about and how you got involved, really. And this might take a bit of time, but
yeah, no, sure, cool. So Cornford Amps started in the early 2000s. That actually may be a little late too. I believe it could have been 1999, way before my time with the company. Paul and Martin Kidd, amazing engineer, sound engineer. They were monkeying about with guitar amps, and they decided to make the guitar amp that they couldn't buy because they were looking for something special. That's really, I believe, how the company started. Martin was doing a lot of research, circuits, a lot of history of guitar amp circuits. A lot of research on what current companies are doing. And wow, he got good at it. But they started with the first amplifier was a Harlequin, small, 7-watt guitar amp combo. Mm-hmm. And from there, it was all designed to get that recording tone, but in a very small package. They were looking for that big, I'm just going to say British tone in a small package that you can record with or gig with. Small wattage, good luck gigging with it. But in the studio, it sounded amazing. So from there, then they came up with a follow-up amplifier, which was the Carrera, then the Hurricane. They started going up in wattage. Then they came out with a Hellcat head and combo, which was 35 watts, messing with EL84s. And they had a modern channel on that amplifier, which is the basis for the next amp, which was their first 50-watt, the MK50, named after Martin Kidd. From there, MK52, Richie Kotzen's 100-watt signature head. And that's about all the amps we got through for the hand-wired range. Then we started working with PCB, which was the Roadhouse range. How did I get involved? Well, let's see. This is fun. So around 97-ish, I was on my quest for tone. So guitar players, you guys know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about, Dan. I could hear in my head what I wanted, right? I could not find what I wanted, nor did I have enough experience to even talk the talk with people to figure out the ins and outs of guitar tone. So I was on my quest, way into my quest in 97. And a lot of it had to do with Eddie Van Halen. So my world revolves around him, bless Eddie. So a lot of my examples I use will revolve around Eddie Van Halen. But he is a great teacher. He always
That's okay.
For us. Yeah, good teacher to have. So I was well into my quest for guitar tone. I started really branching out to people in the industry. Of course, I'm talking with a lot of people out in Los Angeles. You know, I'm trying to get in touch with Bradshaw. I'm trying to get in touch with Lee Jackson. Lee Jackson's one of the guys that contacted me back. And trying to figure out how are these rock stars doing what they're doing. Nothing I hear at the music store sounds like Van Halen. Nothing I hear sounds remotely close to any concert I've ever go to. So what are these tricks? What's going on? I eventually found a music store in the Twin Cities, which isn't open anymore. It was called solidbodyguitar.com. And there was a guy there. His name was Kenny. Great guy. And Kenny knew all of these tricks that I was looking for. He knew everything. In fact, he built me my first pedal board. And any question I had, Kenny knew it. I mean, it was clearly common for me to be at the music store and he'd be like, all right, Eric Johnson, I'll talk to you later. Bye. Click. It's like, what? You're talking to Eric Johnson on the phone and I'm standing here? It was one of those cool places, right? Well, like the place that every guitar player wished they could hang out at. Well, eventually they offered me a job. And so I started working there. At one point, Kenny left the company, and so I became the store manager. During that time, I was going out to NAMM shows, and we, at that store, we were the first U.S. dealer for Cornford amplifiers. So we had a history with Paul, and Paul decided to make us the U.S. main dealer. Yeah, I was all in on the amplifiers. First time I played through it, I'm like, I'm done. I'll never forget it. Rob Balducci, one of our endorsees, he's like, wow, you got to come hear this amp, man. So I walk over. He starts playing through it, and I was done. Like, I finally found on my quest tone, and we're all different, thank God, but I found what I was looking for. I heard it for the first time. I'll never forget it. I can hear it right now in my head. It was just like, oh my God. He's like, here, you got to play this thing. And I'm like, I was done. So eventually after that, Paul told me they were going to be coming out with the printed circuit board Roadhouse range. And at this time, Paul and I have known each other for a couple of years. You know, chatting, going out in LA when we're both at NAMM and stuff like that. And I said, you know, Paul, you are coming out with this huge range of printed circuit board amps. And there's going to be a big push behind this because they're trying to get the price down so the average, you know, consumer can get into this price point, but still have that Cornford tone. And they sound great. So I said, Paul, why don't you let me help you and just I'll take care of America. And so you can focus on everything else. And he's like, okay. And that seriously was his answer. This was, like that. Yeah, right. So he's like, okay. But there was one catch to it. He said, okay, Wally, So there's a NAMM show in 2 weeks in Anaheim in January. So I'm going to need you there. I'm going to need you there with all your new catalogs for your company, and all your business cards and all your contracts for your dealers and this and that. And this is going to be your NAMM show. He said, so I'll see you in 2 weeks. Click. And I was like, wait a second. I was like, what did I just get myself into? But it was amazing. I was contacting friends in the industry that I knew from previous NAMM shows. I contacted Duesenberg Guitars. My God, I need help. You got to help me. I don't even have contracts. I don't have catalogs. I don't have, one sheets for dealers. He's like, oh, I'll help you out. So I had friends that jumped in just to give some examples of what they use at NAMM. I was working day and night for a few days because I still had to get it out to printing. It all came together. I don't even know how it came together, but it did. In fact, I'll never forget, across the street from Anaheim, actually across the sidewalk, is the Anaheim Hilton. A lot of partying goes on there in the evenings after NAMM. A lot of live shows, too. I actually had my business cards sent to the Hilton so I could pick them up as I was walking into day one of the NAMM show. And it just all came together. So lesson number one, be prepared. So, I did pull it off. Got into NAMM. That is how I started with Cornford. And from there, I just hit the road running.
What was the first NAMM show like?
Well, I was used to NAMM because I've been out there so many times.
But as like a vendor. Yeah.
As part of the event, and working at a booth, what it was like for me would have been an average day would be, at that time, Guthrie Govan would walk up. Good morning, Wally. We didn't know each other at first. I mean, we did and we didn't. He'd put on his guitar, plug in, and he'd play guitar from 10 in the morning till 6 o'clock at night. He'd take a couple smoke breaks, but he never stopped playing for 4 days straight. It's interesting about Guthrie is you'd never hear him say play the same thing, playing nonstop for 4 days. Interesting. Never the same lick twice. Never the same thing twice. It was just nonstop playing for 4 days straight. At one point, he was copying the person on the other side of the booth, playing exactly what they were playing as they were playing it, but he was playing one fret off. It was the most uncomfortable thing I've ever heard in my entire life. But the average day at the booth, I'd be meeting with dealers. Dealers would be stopping by. Usually, Paul and I, we would sneak beer in to the NAMM show because the beer is so expensive there, and the lines are pretty long. So we'd stop at the 7-Eleven and we'd actually bring a case of beer in with us and put it under our booth so we wouldn't have to buy beer at NAMM. I'm sorry, but, guitar players were on a budget. But the average day, we'd be slugging down beers, talking with dealers. At that point, I would be making a dealer base. I'd be meeting up with agents that want to work for Cornford USA. And we started from the ground up. I believe at that point, he said, we're starting over as a company in the United States. I had two dealers in New York. The Music Zoo and Ultrasound is who we started out with. And then I just started over from scratch. Everyone had to go through me. I had at one point 3 agents working for me. They were developing their dealer base. And we had about 14, 15 stores in the U.S. that were working with us. But the average day at the booth was filled with talking guitars, talking amps with everyone stopping by. A lot of people stopping by to watch Guthrie play. People definitely weren't stopping by to watch me play. Yeah, slugging beers, talking shop, just like I'm doing now. I got to tell you, this has been pretty exciting for me. I haven't been able to talk Cornford Amps and talk shop for a while, unfortunately, because we did go out of business. But I tell you what, it's a trip. We had some amazing times. I cherish every second of it.
You had Guthrie involved quite a lot to start with. Do you think him being involved at the initial stages make your life a lot easier in like portraying the amp and the sound and giving it credibility, like getting to those initial dealers and getting them on board?
Yeah, sure. Why not? So we're all different. For some dealers, maybe it was. You know, I mean, it wouldn't be the first time a dealer bought a bunch of amps because they wanted to get to know the person selling them so they could meet the rock star, okay? I mean, in the 80s, what do you think these big dealers were doing at NAMM show with the booth babes? Okay, there's plenty of stories out there. So I think, though, the amp sold itself. All the amps did. And at one point, I was able to describe the tone so well over the phone when I was talking to customers that people were buying amps from me without ever even playing them because they didn't have a dealer nearby. We only had 14 dealers, like 3 of them and 4 of them in Los Angeles alone. So we did everything we could, but we're talking, this is right around the time as the recession, 2008. I think it was a mutual thing. I really do believe that Guthrie helped Cornford at certain levels. And I think Guthrie having Cornford helped him as well. I think Guthrie definitely would have an amazing career no matter what. But I think it helped him get on to that level. He was really achieving some amazing results in stardom while he was with Cornford. Yeah.
So how did you describe the amp to people over the phone then? What was your kind of pitch?
I knew you were going to ask me that as soon as I said that. How would I describe it? So I would use examples that people know. I could describe a guitar amplifier as, I would use names that they recognize. So when I want to describe the RK100, Richie Kotzen 100 signature amp, I could actually tell them that Zakk Wylde and John Fogerty both use the same guitar amplifier. It's that versatile. Not only that, but you don't listen to Zakk Wylde? Okay, how about Mark Tremonti from Creed? Mark Tremonti uses the RK100 as his lead channel in the studio. John Fogerty uses RK100 in the studio as well. So it's a very wide range. Then I would start, asking them questions so I could qualify them into the right Cornford amplifier, because they don't all do the same thing, right? I would do my very best to qualify them into the right amplifier so we could start diving into what these amps are good at. It's an interesting topic. When you talk guitar tone with guitar players, there are guitar players that are on the indefinite guitar tone hunt. Okay, I see him every day. I see him on Facebook. Hey, check out my new guitar amplifier. It's like, okay, it's number 10 this year, man. A lot of guitar players were trying to get me to make a decision of what amplifier they should make, but I can't hear what they're hearing in their head. I would always do my very best. I only had 1 guitar amp returned in my entire career, so did pretty good.
Yeah, no, it's an inherently difficult thing, especially when you've got such a range of amplifiers to describe to different people. But I think when you've got artists that use them and they're so different and people can pull on that, I think that's the way to go. Like, how else do you do it, really? Did you take, like, the dealers influence the Cornford sound at all? Were they like feeding back what their people were perceiving and what they wanted from an amp? Were you designing, or I guess back to Paul really, but were they designing amps with that in mind, or?
No, they were doing their own thing. So yeah, they took feedback. Usually the feedback was going towards maybe problems that were coming up with the amps. I mean, they did rigorous testing, you know, most companies do. Laws are different over in the UK regarding products. If you have a product that's faulty, in the UK, I do believe that it's the requirement of the company that manufactured that product. They are always required to fix it. I believe that's how it works in the UK. I might be wrong, but that's always been my impression.
Yeah, for a couple of years, I think. Yeah, 2-year guarantee or something.
Yeah. They took customers' feedback, I believe, for more so for, I guess, on the road R&D. And it's funny. It's been a while. It's been a couple months, but I still do respond to a lot of tech questions regarding Cornford amps. My email is still on. I haven't changed a lot of that stuff over yet, just because my entire life has always been connected to it, and I just don't feel like I still haven't felt like changing anything. But I mean, thousands and thousands of emails over the years for tech and support questions, and you know, I've always did everything I could to get them their answers. And you know, up until quite recently, I was still able to get in touch with Martin Kidd, who's obviously now he's pretty deep into Victory amplifiers. They're doing great. From what I hear, I mean, they're doing solid over there, which is great. I mean, and he deserves that. You know, I definitely wish him the best. There's definitely no hard feelings for him doing his thing.
I mean, you touched on Guthrie and Mark Tremonti, but like, who were the artists that you kind of worked closely with and got to know and became friends with? And there must be an array of stories that goes with that.
Cheers. Yeah, so yeah, you know, Mark Tremonti is a hilarious story. I'll save that one for later. But yeah, Guthrie and Rob Balducci were the first two endorsees that I was working with. God, I have so many stories that you start to forget them. It's funny. Right when I started Cornford USA, Rob Balducci hits me up. Hey, I'm going and I'm doing this gem festival down in Florida, and I need a guitar amp. Oh, okay, no problem. I'll just send you my amp. You can use it for the festival. It turned into a really cool thing. There's a video out there where Steve Vai is introducing the brand new second generation, like, gem floral pattern. It was like the new floral pattern gem. Well, if you look next to it, the guitar is leaning on my guitar amplifier because Rob just got off stage. Well, Rob's playing my amp at this festival. He gets a phone call from Steve Vai because Rob was on his Favored Nations label. And it's Steve Vai calling Rob. He's like, hey, can you come up to my hotel room? Rob's like, yeah, sure. Goes up to the hotel room. He's like, what's going on, man? Steve's like, you got to tell me about this guitar amp. So at that point, we got a nice Christmas card from Steve Vai that year. Paul was working on a relationship with him and working on getting Steve some amps. I believe we were going to send him some of Dweezil Zappa's amplifiers, but I don't think we were able to get to those amps in time. I think Dweezil sold them. But God, stories. Every single guy has stories. In fact, on the way back from that, Rob Balducci hits me up after he gets back from the show. Hey, Wally, thanks for letting me use your amp. And I'm like, yeah, man, where's my amp? He's like, what? I said, where's my guitar amp, dude? Like, what'd you do with it? He's like, what do you mean? I said, I never received my guitar amp back. I was lying, okay? I fed him full of a bunch of BS, and it was just my crazy humor, just saying, hey, man, I was just being crazy and stuff. So I let him in on the joke at the end of it. But man, he was sweating bullets. He's like, I don't know what to say, man. I did everything right. Well, I had my guitar amp. Stories about Guthrie, man. Last time I saw Guthrie was about 7 years ago. Guthrie played in St. Paul, which is one of the Twin Cities here, Minneapolis, St. Paul. He was playing at the Amsterdam Club with the Aristocats. And amazing power trio. That's the last time I was able to see him. But stories about Guthrie, man. I guess I don't even know where to start. We basically hung out all the time. I mean, there was a time, I guess, once after a NAMM show, we all went out to eat at the Outback in Anaheim, which was just about a mile south of NAMM show. You always think, it's just down the road. Yeah, by the time you get there, you're half dead because you seriously walked miles to get to this, pub, right? So we're outside drinking Fosters, and they got these big Fosters that are this big, right? But at the end of the night, I don't know how we did it, but we put down like $500 in Fosters, and Richie Kotzen was there. I don't even think he had a beer, but. We were all there just talking crap. We had John Payne from Asia was there. Richie was there. Guthrie. And we were just pounding beers. Funny story about Guthrie. One time we were going outside for a drink and a smoke or whatever. And we were using the restroom at the NAMM show. And we're just kind of, I don't know. Not really like having a normal chat, but we're just kind of talking. This guy walks up. He's like, "Hey, Guthrie. Hey, man. Can I just shake your hand real quick?" Guthrie kind of looks at me and says, "If you don't mind, can I wash my hands first?" We were seriously using the urinals. So we go outside, and Guthrie's like, Wally, you do really good at these conventions. And I said, I don't know, man. I don't have guys trying to shake my hand when I'm taking a piss. But we got a million stories, man. Oh, gosh. Taking the cab to go get in and out in the middle of the night. Cab driver taking us on a scenic route. I remember I took a cab to get in and out. It was seriously a mile away from my hotel, but the cab fare cost like $150 after we ate. It cost us $200 to go get 2 hamburgers and fries. It was just crazy. Let's see. Funny stories. So this is a pretty funny story. I was talking about how I would talk to customers when they called me about guitar amplifiers, and I would qualify them into the amplifier I thought might be best for them, and we would narrow it down from there. So one day I get this call at Solid Body Guitar. The guy has these questions about the RK100 and the MK52. So I'm qualifying him into which amp might be best for his situation. We were talking for a long time, 45 minutes, hour easy. And those phone calls usually did take quite a long time because I was doing everything I can. I wanted to get it right. I did not want a guitar amp to be returned. I wanted the customer to get it right the first time. At the end of the conversation, the guy's like, well, hey, I want to introduce myself. My name's Mark Tremonti, and I'm in a band called Creed. And I started laughing on the phone. I'm like, man, Mark, I really wish you would have told me this at the beginning before I started teaching you the basics of guitar amplifiers over the phone, right? He's like, no, man, you did a really good job. Mark's a great guy, extremely humble. He's come to town multiple times, and we usually meet up. He's, we're at NAMM show giving me a call. Hey, I'm down at the bar. Let's meet up. So one time I took my oldest daughter with me to go see Tremonti on his first solo tour. Tremonti's got Eric Friedman on guitar. He's got Wolfgang on bass, right? I mean, this is ridiculous. So hey, do you mind if I bring my daughter down? I'd love her to check this out. This would be fun. Yeah, bring your daughter down. So we're up in the green room. We met with Tremonti first just to hang out, just, the three of us, before things, I guess, escalated or got a little, crazier. They really didn't, but spent some time with him. And, oh, my God, I walk in. He's got a drawing pad this big, one of those big white drawing pads. He's drawing this crazy dragon. I'll never forget it. I looked out at it. I was like, holy smokes, man. Oh, yeah, it's just kind of what I do on the side. It's like a freaking work of art. I'll never forget it. It looked like it was just like right out of, Dungeons and Dragons, man. It was just sweet. We would talk shop, but usually... I mean, when I'm doing that thing, I really don't like to talk shop. It's more or less just, hey, you checking in with the family, and oh yeah, talking to them every day, and what's new with you, and tour's going good, cool. So we go in the other room where the rest of the bandmates are kind of warming up and getting crazy, and Mark's doing his thing. He's trying to figure out why his guitar amp isn't working. Well, Wolfgang just walked by and somehow used his telekinetic powers to turn the power off for the amp as he's walking by. And you can't even figure out what's going on. Well, Wolfgang turned the guitar amp off, and I look over, and Wolfgang's just smiling. He's got the little Valerie Bertinelli eyes, And I remember at one point, everyone's like, man, Wally, that amp is just smoking in the studio. They all heard it. And Wolfgang looks over at my daughter, Sage. He's like, hey, so how old are you? And my daughter's like, oh, I'm 18. He looks over at me, and I'm just like this. Nope. And he just went like this. He looked like Eddie Van Halen so much on that. He looked like Eddie with Valerie's eyes. You just kind of like, I tried. It's like, nope, no guitar players for this little girl. Funny story. Super crazy. I mean, I was watching him warm up on bass, and Mark's like, yeah, I'm going to introduce you, and you got to like play Eruption on bass. He's like, oh, like this? Bam. And I was like, oh my God, this kid's a monster player. Nice kid. Tremonti introduced me to a couple people. So my personal MK52 has been everywhere. I sent it down for Tremonti to use a couple times. God, I think I sent it down maybe to Billy Gibbons once. I can't remember. Sent it down for Rob Balducci to use. Sent it out once to Rusty Cooley to check out. Rusty is really into his Diesel thing, and got a good relationship. I think he was using Diesel. I just basically want people to try it out, like real guys. And the biggest thing, a lot of people had a hard time really describing Cornford amps. And one day I said something in an interview. It was like a lot of amps. The way the tone goes through the amp, there's a lot of EQing that goes on. It makes the guitar player sound better than they are because you got that really scooped EQ pattern, right? You're hiding a lot of mistakes. Like Mesa Boogies, for example. I love Mesa. Don't know what's going to happen with them. I heard news about Gibson buying them or something. Yeah, I got to look into that. I don't even know the story. So one of the coolest things about Cornford is Cornford makes your mistakes loud. And there's a real benefit to that. The benefit is you are getting all of your guitar tone. It's up to you to EQ it however you like. You're going to get a full spectrum EQ from your guitar. There's no masking it. And once I started explaining the Cornford amps that way to people, and the boutiquiness, whatever, it's just expensive, high end. People started understanding it. That's one of the ways I started explaining it to them. you would have these amazing guitar players using these amps. You play it, you would notice it right away. But it would not take long for any guitar player to get used to that sound. It's actually pretty quick. I think you'd be used to it in an hour. And you could take it out to a gig. You would have the best show of your life. I guarantee it. Your tone. I always love turning my amp on for sound check, hitting 2 chords. That big wah, your big G chord. Freaking everyone in the entire place would always turn, and they'd be like, "What the hell are you playing through?" It's just my little guitar amp over here. Every sound guy in the world come up. What are you playing? Oh my, this is the best guitar amp I've ever heard. I'm like, I know, man. It's one hell of a guitar amp.
I think that's lacking, like in the amp world still. Like it's getting there more, as we move on and people demand more from the amps. But like, I think, manipulating the sound just to make you sound better. I don't know. It's kind of putting a Band-Aid on, the long-term thing. And like, we're all about, pedals are now coming out as true bypass, and we're heading down that path of like wanting to get the full raw sound out, so that I just think it, it has more clarity, it's cleaner, and you can just do more with it once you become, competent and understand what to do with it. I think it's probably more of an advanced player's guitar, would you say? Like, it gets you there, but like, I think starting off with a Cornford amp initially, from what you're describing, is a good way to go, just because, relatively lower cost compared to really high-end boutique amps, but still get you that sound. And turning heads, if you've got players like Tremonti and Guthrie Govan, and Guthrie sounds amazing even through a Cornford amp, if that's highlighting his mistakes and stuff, it's just, for certain players, it just makes them shine even more by the sound of it.
I can't say enough for the amps. My amp, unfortunately, was at a factory in the United States for a few years while we were working on U.S. manufacturing options. Unfortunately, it was sent back to me and it was damaged. So, which sucks. A lot of history in that amplifier, but it'll be up and running. So I'll get it up and running.
So, like, what's the status of Cornford now? Like, I know you said it kind of ground to a halt and kind of stopped, but you're still here doing what you do and keeping kind of an eye on things. But like, I'm not too familiar with the story. You got to full production and you were here in the States and everything was going well. Do you mind going into a bit of what kind of happened?
What initially happened, the initial problem that happened was we had a fire in the UK at our manufacturer. And the manufacturer was, the manufacturing plant was an old, boat manufacturing factory. It was huge, like the biggest building I've ever seen, on a little inlet from the sea. And they had a fire. There was a fire in the wood shop, probably a sawdust collector, something like that. The tide was out that day, seriously. It was stacked against us. The tide was out. They brought in 14 water tankers. They had 77 firemen. It was a complete loss. This, seriously, was a couple weeks after the NAMM show where we debuted our brand new Roadhouse PCB range. We just got an award for the amplifier from Premier Guitar Magazine, and all of a sudden, boom, our entire facility was burnt down to the ground. It caused major problems. It took us 1.5 years to get back up and running, which really sucked for the dealer base that we built in, not only in the world, but everything I did in the U.S. all came to a screeching halt. We got things back up and running. I just want to be careful how I say this. I was not the owner of Cornford Amplification. I was the owner of Cornford USA, which was, all things Cornford in the USA. So a mix of problems with getting the amps back up and running, but also there was two other issues. One issue, Paul was dealing with some health issues. But I'll be honest with you, I was not too much into conversations with him about that. I really felt that was private. And then there was there was another major issue going on. Unfortunately, I'm going to be naive and not talk about it. When you mix those two things together with the fire that just happened, it created a recipe for an implosion. We had a really good thing going. We had a manufacturer that was building for us. But there was a big problem at the end of the day. One day when at the end, Paul was dealing with his health. I was trying to keep Cornford afloat in Paul's absence. And, like I said, I was running Cornford for the entire planet at the end, doing, all the support, all the tech support, all the A&R support, all the artist representation, doing the orders for the planet, only to find out that all of a sudden there's guitar dealers in the world that we don't even know of. Guitar dealers that are selling amps that we didn't even know how did they purchase these amplifiers. Unfortunately, that's a different story for someone else to dive into someday, but I can't go into that. And I found out the hard way with the last order that I made that Cornford was done because the manufacturer was not going to produce for me anymore. It was tough. I'm trying to keep this thing up and running so Paul can come back when he's healthy. We had a plan. We had another guitar amp ready to come out. It was called he was going to call it the Phoenix, after the bird that caught fire, right? I mean, we named it after the factory.
Yep.
Now, and then the Phoenix actually had a lot of Van Halen tone in it too. So we were really excited about that. We had a plan. Unfortunately, near the end of that, the cards were really stacked against us. And there were powers that be that did not want us in business.
You're involved in the kind of retail side of it and dealing with artists and stuff. So you must have learned a lot dealing with these different people. And I'd love to give some advice and takeaways for people that, want to get into the music industry, and maybe some lessons that you've learned, to really help educate maybe some hard truths that people don't always anticipate before getting into it, if you're able to share such things.
As my career went up, done some fun things, man. A lot of things I haven't even spoke about. I don't like to talk about me, but here we are talking about me, right? And I would like for people to learn something or at least get something out of this. I love making people laugh and telling fun stories. Gosh, I'm trying to keep it clean. I think my mother will probably watch this at some point. But music industry is a lot of fun. It's a lot of rock and roll. It's a lot of beer, smoking, girls, crazy, after show parties. But people need to realize if you're going somewhere, this is a business. And with a business, you need a plan. To have a realistic plan, you need achievable goals that are measurable. How do I get from point A to point B? What's the magic in between there? How can I gauge, no matter what you're doing? Hey, how many CDs did we sell at the last show? How many shirts? Are you keeping track of this? You guys just winging it, slugging beers, Maybe you're not into it, for the real deal. Maybe it's a fun thing. And believe me, I haven't played out in 7 years. Shame on me. but I'm not done yet. So I don't want people ever to forget that music, in the music industry, the entertainment industry, it is a business. And unfortunately, business can be cutthroat. You will learn some hard lessons. You will learn through a lot of hard knocks. And I wish I could say some things to help prevent people from having to go through some terrible things. But just be aware, this industry can be tough. But hopefully people have more positive things to say than negative. I like to tell people stories about, it's almost like the Hollywood story, I guess I would just nickname it. If things seem too good to be true, they probably are too good to be true. Hey, I'm so-and-so, I'm the biggest guitar player in the world. I really want to use your product, and I'd like to do this, this, and this. Really partner with you. Can I get an amp? And blah, blah, blah. Yeah, no problem. Never see the amp ever again. There's a lot of hard lessons. I made mistakes, but I learned from them. I really would like everyone just to be aware that the Hollywood syndrome, I'm talking to this dude, everyone knows who this guy is. Hey man, just be careful. Sometimes if it seems too good to be true, it might be. Just look out for your back. Have a backup plan. Make sure you have some checks and balances no matter what you're doing in the music industry. All right, I'm going to do this for you. You're going to do this for me. Good luck with contracts. A lot of people don't even like to sign them. But we've all played a gig and not gotten paid for it. So, this is just a lot of, I don't want it to be negative. I just want it to be an eye-opener, more or less, for everyone out there.
Yeah, it doesn't come across as negative. I think it's important to get these things out, because there is, maybe less so now with social media and stuff, but there's always been a facade that just has this interpretation that everything's all hunky-dory and it's fantastic and it's all parties and everyone does well, everyone gets on, but it's business. Like you've got competitors, amp building competitors and guitar building, everyone's competing with each other, and there's always that undercurrent of it's a business. And you've got to be careful. You've got to try and get contracts in place, and I imagine it's a real difficulty to try and get people to put their name down, to actually sign to say, yes, that's what I'm going to stand by. Because I don't know, it's pretty shitty to borrow an amp no matter who you are and then just never get that. I mean, that's, yeah. But then that must happen. It's not like, oh my God, how dare he? It's like, you need to just have these protections in place somehow. And I know it's hard sometimes, but yeah.
It's funny. I was going to bring up some amps. So it looked really cool here for everyone to see. I got a really nice setup, but honestly, my back's been hurting. I didn't get it done, and I should have. So maybe we'll do this again in the future, and I'll have some amps up. But I am missing an amplifier that never came back to me. Man, I fought like hell for 5 years to get an amp, and I keep getting the runaround. And it's unfortunate because you're getting a runaround from a person that thousands of people know. Probably tens of thousands of people know, because they just don't care, and they're not going to put time into it, and they're not doing the right thing. Doing the right thing is something that's really important to me. Taking care of the customers. I was always very much into finding answers as fast as I could for Cornford customers. Because without the customers, we were nothing. Just because you have an amazing guitar player playing your amp, you're not going to be anything without taking care of your customers. So that's the biggest key. Just like in the music industry, eventually you're going to be nothing if you're not taking care of the person you're doing business with. So I guess, man, if you screw someone over in the music industry, careful, man, because I swear to God, it's bad karma. It's going to come back big time.
Yeah, definitely. Like I can't ignore the fact you've got an Eddie Van Halen t-shirt on. So we lost him last year. How was that? How did that hit you? Like, I don't want to make it a really depressing interview, but like, it's an important thing that happened. Do you know what I mean? Like, I want to get perspective as to how big an influence he was in maybe your playing, your life, how you went about things, and you've met Wolfgang. So like, you know, you're more involved than others have been. So.
Yeah. Wow. Gosh, you know, it's so funny. I wasn't expecting you to ask me this. So that's funny. So the reason I play guitar is because there's three reasons. In 1984, I saw Purple Rain in my hometown outside of, about 40 miles from Lambeau Field and Packers Lambeau Field. I was in my hometown theater. It used to be 99 cents to see a movie. Opening weekend, Prince comes to our town. Wait a second. In my hometown, I don't even know if a movie ever came out opening weekend. It was probably 6 months later. But to us, it was opening weekend, okay? So I'm standing in this theater. I remember it came out in the fall time, I believe, like around God, didn't it come out like in November or something like that? It seemed cold because the radiators were on in the theater. Standing room only, I swear to God. Every single kid was at that movie because it was this wild Prince movie, right? So I went to go see Purple Rain. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, oh my God. I was completely blown away. At the same time, I had the single for Jump, 1984, Van Halen. So Eddie and Prince were my inspiration from the get-go. And I had some cousins from Milwaukee that had a band. And these guys, I was just blown away by their talent. I mean, musicians, artists, putting models together. These guys could do anything. And I couldn't believe they were in my own family, right? They're in my bloodline. I'm just like, my God. I was very inspired by them. Eddie Van Halen. So Eddie has always been the one for me. Everyone has their inspiration. I mean, I have many guitar players that I just love and have respect for. I have respect for all of them, even the ones I don't understand. I have respect for them. Man, I learned a really hard lesson one time, which is the reason why I have respect for pretty much all music. But Eddie has been my guy forever, man. God, I remember the first time that the Van Halen Jump video was on MTV. I remember my younger sister and I and my mom and my cousin and my aunt were all dancing to it. And they're just like, oh, my God, who's this guy in the yellow jacket? He's always smiling in this video, right? And, I mean, I didn't even realize it was Van Halen at the time, right? It was only years later, but Eddie's always been my guy. I was fortunate enough to meet Eddie back in '97. I went to a Lou Gehrig's disease benefit concert in Chicago. It was while I was in music school, or right after, somewhere around there. And I was in my second year. And we drove from Minneapolis to Chicago to go to this benefit. Well, we got stuck in an ice storm, and it took us 12 hours to get there. And I'll never forget, we got there. It was like, oh, my God, we've been driving for 12 hours. We're like, well, should we just drive into town real quick and just go grab a beer? All right, let's just go down to the Hard Rock Cafe quick. So we get to the Hard Rock, and there's this line outside. And we're like, what the heck, man? There's a line to get in. It's like Friday night. All right, whatever. So we're standing in line, we're just kind of talking. We get to the front door, and the guy in front of us turns around and says, did I just hear you guys say that you just drove 12 hours to get here? I said, yeah, we're here in town for this Lou Gehrig's benefit tomorrow night. Cool guitar players, we listen to our plan. And he's like, all right, come on with me. And we walk in, we go up the stairs in the Chicago. I haven't been there for 23 years, 25 years. But when you walked in, there were stairs going upstairs. And we went to the top of the stairs, and he pulls out a badge. He's like, come on in. And we walk in, he turns around, and he's like, all right, now don't go get in trouble. have fun. And I turned around, it was all the guitar players that were going to be playing the next night. So it's all these shrapnel guys were playing, right? And I'm like, are you kidding me, man? And I turn around and I look, there's freaking Eddie Van Halen sitting right there. And there's no one sitting at his table. I'm like, get the frick out of here, right? I'm like, freaking Eddie Van Halen sitting right next to me. I'm just like staring at him like a kid, right? So I walk over and I sit down next to him. He's like, oh, hey, man, how you doing? I'm like, hey, man, how you doing? And and the funniest thing, like my entire life as a child, I mean, my best friends and I, we used to say, okay, what would you do if you sat down next to Eddie Van Halen? You know, what question would you ask him? Oh, I'm going to ask him how to play Eruption. Man, what is he doing in Cathedral? I mean, what is this and what is that? Shoot, man. All we did was talk about our kids. It was funny. At the time, I had one child at that time, and he had Wolfgang too, and they're very close in age. Like I said, I mean, frick, Wolfgang hit on my daughter, right? Yeah, little did Eddie know that his son was going to hit on my daughter, right? But we're like showing each other pictures of our kids. Like I had a picture of my wallet. I mean, we were having this great conversation. He pulls out his keys. He's got this picture of Wolfgang on his keychain, like these corny things that they had back in like the 90s. But his keys had like Porsche and Ferrari and Lamborghini keys on it, and mine was like a Ford something, right? He was the most personable, honest, just kind person ever. And I think there's a picture out there where you can see that I'm trying to hide my beer from him because he was drinking Old Duels. It was when he was sober. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, I finally get to meet like my idol, and he's going to be back on, he's going to be off the bandwagon because of me, because I'm sitting there drinking in front of him, right? So I'm like trying to turn every once in a while to get a drink because I'm freaking out. I'm talking to Eddie Van Halen. It was a cool experience. Yeah, well, a lot of people have players out there. Eddie's death, man, I was worried about him for the last few years, all the rumors, and I knew it wasn't good. You know, I mean, when Camp Van Halen stops talking about Eddie's health, I was really, really, really worried. And when the news came, man, I was, I have a day job. I'm not working in the music industry right now, and I heard something on the radio, and it was my subconscious heard it. And I was like, you guys just hear that? And I went in the office, I got my cell phone, and I did a search for Eddie Van Halen, and it said Eddie Van Halen dead. Somehow my subconscious mind heard it on the radio. The rest of the day, they played Van Halen tunes on the radio. And actually, I was sending a video to my girlfriend, and they played Love Walks In from 5150, and they were playing that awesome guitar solo, man. And it's got so much feel. And I'm trying to send my girlfriend this video, just saying, man, I'm thinking about Eddie, man. This is just pretty rough. I'm a mess. And when you watch this video and I'm hearing the guitars solo in the background, you see within 20 seconds, my entire face is dripping in sweat. I was having like a physical reaction. And it's amazing how connected you can get to someone, you know, when you follow them and you're that close to it. What a loss, man. But I guess if I had to put a positive spin on it, I'm glad he's not suffering anymore.
Yeah, definitely. And it's fascinating you actually got to meet him. And I don't think there's many people, you can talk about Hendrix and stuff, but in terms of modern revolution of the way the guitar is played and sounds and just the fun and the exploration behind it, I don't think there's a better person that flew the flag for that kind of mentality. And that was what I was so inspired by. And I'm a little bit later. I was born in 86, so I'm after these sort of things happen. And even myself tuning into it afterwards, and with YouTube videos, hearing him talk so passionately about things, even within the last 10 years, and still exploring, still looking. It's that was infectious to me more than anything. His playing's awesome, but it was always that hunt and that desire to tweak and change, and it was just a loss, because I was like, oh man, who's that person now?
Right. It's interesting. So Eddie, I think, would have been one of the last of that breed, right? Yeah, there's great guitar players out there. There really is. There's great songwriters out there. It's not like it used to be. No one's going to record stores the day that the new cassette comes out, or the new record comes out, or the new CD comes out. We just don't do that anymore. A lot of music it's extremely nostalgic for me. I'm a pretty nostalgic person. I really am. And, I'm actually going to be leaving here in about 30 minutes to drive back home to Green Bay. And I'm going to be probably driving by my old record store in about 6 hours, and where I used my old stomping grounds, and it's still there. And times change. It's interesting enough that I always refer to Richie Kotzen as the last rock star, who was Cornford and Dorsey. Richie still does it, old school. He's extremely talented. And it's funny, when I was at NAMM show, no one ever came to listen to me play guitar. I remember one time I was noodling on the guitar. It's getting close to the end of the day, Friday night or something. It was pretty slow. I turn around, freaking Richie Kotzen standing there watching me play guitar. I'm like, oh, don't mind me. I'm just going to turn this off real quick, right? And he's like, no, that's cool, man. I just listen to the amp, and I'm playing through it. He was just looking for Paul or something, but it was kind of funny. Believe me, my plan's not like it used to be, but I'm not done yet. So, I still have plans for the future. Lots of good stuff.
I'd love to find out more about what's next for you, Wally. I know you've got a couple of ideas in the pipeline, and I don't know how much you can share, but I'd love to know what you're thinking, and maybe what you think's next for maybe amps as well. 2 separate questions, but let's kind of dig into some of that.
What's next for amps? That's an interesting question. So since the pandemic, I really haven't gone and played any amps at any stores. So it's been, we're coming up in about 2 weeks on shutdown. I mean, we haven't been completely shut down, but I've taken it pretty seriously. I know a lot of people that have been affected. Their families have been affected by COVID. I'm in great health, but, I'm going to do everything I can. Single dad. I'm not single, but, I live with my children by myself. And I'm going to do everything I can to set them up for success. So I've taken health a little seriously. So I haven't been out to the stores to check out amps. But I'll be honest with you, when I go to stores, I don't plug in. I rarely do, because I think it all sounds like consumer level merchandise. And I'm not knocking it, man. We all start somewhere. I still got my first amplifier. I think it's at my mom and dad's house. It's an old Gorilla, like this big. Holy smoke, that was the loudest I've ever received. I still have my first amp. We all start somewhere. But when I go to Guitar Center, it's all consumer level. You're not going to get anything pro there. You'll get close. It all depends on how far you want to dive into it. And that was always my focus in the music industry, working at the guitar store and building pedal boards and touring rack systems for guys. I would tell them, hey, we can dive as far into this as you want to. Tone is going to be between that guitar pick and that microphone. Everything in between comes into play. So you tell me when you want to stop, because we can just keep going. So guitar amps. I don't want to talk about guitar amps right now. I think so. My focus for a while now has been guitar amplifier modeling. So I'm not going to talk too much about it, but I've been following it for a long time, and I really do believe technology is getting better, right? I mean, shoot, man, my phone's got a 500 gig hard drive on it. I mean, our technology is getting off the hook. And we are getting to a point where computer chips are doing a pretty dang good job. I remember 20 years ago where it was just like, it just doesn't sound that good. Yeah, right, man. Go listen to the new modeling amps out there. Okay. They're getting pretty dang good. And that is opening up. Even though we have a couple big ones out there, right? You got Fractal and you got Kemper and blah, blah, blah. And these guys are dominating the market. I'm going to tell you right now. And I'm just going to rib them a little bit. I think they're doing it wrong. And so I've always had some specific things that I wanted to achieve. And I really do want to get involved in guitar amplifier modeling. So that is where my focus has been. You know, I take time off, and I'm pretty passionate about being a father, and a good one. So, you know, when I have an idea, I can't, it's not like being a single guy anymore and not having kids and just picking up your guitar and wanking off whenever you want to. I do what I can when I can. My focus has been my children for a very long time. What I'm going to be doing, though, is I do want to work in guitar amplifier modeling because I think there's a lot of opportunity there, and I think there could be a lot of positive changes for it. So that's going to be where Wally is going to be working on and on the side, and I got a lot of ideas.
That's interesting. Yeah, I don't expect you to talk too much about it, and taking care of the family is just as important, so kudos to you for doing that. It's been fantastic to talk to you, Wally. We dug into a lot of stories, and we can go on for hours. And if you're up for it, we could do another one where we talk more about amps and gear and stuff, and we could definitely dive into some more specific stuff. But it's been fantastic to have you on and just chatting about some of the stuff. Thanks for that.
I tell you what, man, I'd be game for that. I love talking shop. This has been a breath of fresh air. So I do appreciate the opportunity, Dan.
No, thanks so much. Well, thanks for listening, guys. And if you have any questions about Cornford, please reach out and ask questions to Wally. I'll put his email address and contact in the description. But thanks for checking it out, and hopefully it entices you to dig into the story a bit more and figure out some music from some of those artists. So thanks so much, guys, and I will see you next time.
Thank you.